Oh, hey there.
Oh, hey there.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
My ears are plugged.
What?
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 I'm sorry to hear that.
Hear what?
Yep.
Yeah, still recovering from a cold, but
Yeah,
it's a lot better.
We're getting there, right?
Yeah, but my
Good.
ears are still plugged, and it's kind of weird.
Yeah, that's the worst because it just messes with like everything in your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. Anything new with you?
Not really.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do have a new beer, though.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah.
It's,
Well, we recently went to Kentucky,
yep.
and we brought back some beers with us.
Yeah, so it's from Country Boy Brewing, and this was...
You got the same brand I did.
I did, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I kind of did that on purpose. Georgetown, Kentucky. So...
Which I don't know where that is.
I'm not familiar.
Yeah, same.
I don't know its proximity to Louisville, but then again, the first and only time I've ever been to Kentucky was when we went to Louisville for our friend's graduation. But yeah, so you got a, what is it again?
I got cougar bait.
Cougar bait.
Yep.
Oh, scandalous.
Yep, and it's kind of an orange and white can, and there's a guy on the front, and he looks like he's fishing.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, but it's an American blonde ale.
Yeah.
It says, any fisherman worth his salt will tell you it's all about the bait. Lucky for you, you're holding the good stuff. An American blonde ale, clean and crisp. Cougar bait is sure to help with your catch, whatever you may be fishing for. Oh, that's cute.
I have a halfway home American Pale Ale. Shall I read you what they put on my can?
Yeah.
All right. This is the carrot on the string, the reminder that you are halfway home to that well-deserved reward. It's time to buckle down and get the job done because our easy drinking pale pairs with gumption, hard work, and good old stick-to-itiveness.
Stick-to-itiveness?
Yeah. Sure.
You okay?
Yeah.
You're right. You have old man eyes.
Well, I think I need to get my prescription updated. So, either way. But, so cheers to a new beer. We
Cheers.
thought we'd bring one back, so give it a go.
All right.
What do you think?
I like it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, mine is definitely just a pale ale.
Mine is quite flavorful. Actually, I do like it.
Mine's not bad. It's got some good flavor to it. It's, I should stop turning my head towards the can. I apologize. No, it's decent. So,
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah.
I've got a question for you.
What is your question for me?
How do you like to express yourself in like the way that you look?
Oh, boy. I guess my beard.
Yeah, you have an epic beard.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not like one to get all fancy dressed up, I guess. I never have been. Mm-hmm. It's not like I'm going to go wear a suit or anything out to dinner or whatnot.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I wear polos a lot and I wear button-up shirts a lot.
Yeah.
I don't really wear just T-shirts kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess that.
Comfortable, but not like...
I'm not wearing, a T-shirt and sweatpants
Right.
out kind of thing.
Right.
But I like to be comfortable, just jeans and a...
You look put
Polo.
together with your polos and...
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
How about you?
Well, my hair's a mess, so it's always up.
Well,
It's a mess. I really don't know how to take care of it yet, and I'm still working on that.
yeah.
Because I'm still figuring out that my hair's wavy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So my expression usually comes in my tattoos, which I am overdue for 1 or 2 or 5.
Or 5.
Yes. So
Fair enough.
yeah. So I want to take you to Hollywood in the 1930s.
Okay.
It's all glitz and glamour, right?
Yep.
LA was actually super conservative at this time and super segregated.
Okay.
So Jim Crow laws weren't just a Southern thing. It was in California as well.
Sure.
And it was discrimination against Mexican Americans specifically. Yeah.
I suppose the population over there would be quite high with its proximity to Mexico.
Well, California used to be a part of Mexico.
Correct, yeah.
So,
Right.
exactly. So then jazz kind of makes a big wave in the area, and it's like a nice breath of fresh air, almost like a rebellion type of thing.
Sure.
And then you had these clubs where there's blacks and whites and Mexican American kids, and they could all hang out together, something that wasn't really happening anywhere else.
Sure.
And these jazz artists kind of started this fashion trend of the Zoot suit.
Zoot suits. Really?
Yes, yeah. So it's a very distinctive style.
Okay.
It's baggy pants, but they're like nice pants, but they're baggy.
Not like MC Hammer baggy pants. Do you remember those?
Yes, I do. No, these are a notch above.
Did they call those parachute pants? Something like that, I think, right?
Yeah. So Zoot suit pants were wide at the knees, and then they tapered at the ankle.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's weird.
It's different.
Yeah.
And then it also was paired with a long coat.
Okay.
Usually, wow, that was, okay. Right on. You was usually paired with like watch chains.
Sure.
And
so it's like a pocket watch kind of chain?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
So expressing yourself, pushing boundaries for these young Mexican Americans was a way to say, we're here, we're proud, we're a part of California, we're a part of this, we're not going to conform.
Sure.
So these kids were first generation Mexican Americans born in the U.S., and they were kind of caught between two different worlds.
Right.
Their parents were immigrants from Mexico. They had traditional values, often tied to the Catholic Church.
Sure.
And they wanted their kids close and to follow in their footsteps. But these kids, they're Americans, and they wanted similar things as other American kids of this time.
Yeah, makes sense.
They wanted to go downtown and shop and dance and just live like other kids do.
Yeah.
But segregation was kind of a constant barrier for them.
Sure.
So movie theaters, swimming pools, sidewalks even.
Everything, really, bathrooms.
Everything was divided.
Yeah.
And it was really tough to navigate. And it was kind of hard for them to figure out who they were in society.
Okay.
And then Pearl Harbor happened.
Yeah.
And you remember the date?
I do. Do you?
Tell us the date.
Not waiting for you to get it.
No, I have it written down so I can't get it wrong. You do it.
December 7th, 1941.
Correct.
What happened on December 6th?
So, over 2,000 Americans are killed. West Coast is terrified now.
Yeah, because they all think they're going to get attacked, right?
Yeah, they're on the edge. The Pacific Fleet is stationed there. A lot of people had friends and families who were directly impacted.
Yeah.
And the government, fueled by this fear and prejudice, starts rounding up Japanese immigrants, thinking they're all spies.
Which is wild.
They're Japanese Americans.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there comes an executive order. 120,000 Japanese Americans are first forced into internment camps.
Yeah, which is wild.
And I need to do an episode on that because it's not just the Nazis that had concentration camps. We just called it internment camps.
Right.
I need to do research on that.
But we also weren't then putting them into these camps and then experimenting on them and then gassing them and all that stuff.
No, but
they did this for national security.
Yes.
It's not saying it's right, but it was clearly different motivation to put them in these camps than what the Nazis were doing during World War II.
But I still would like to research what kind of conditions they went through and that kind of thing.
I'm sure it wasn't fine living. Yeah. Yeah, no, that'd be interesting to learn because I couldn't imagine having to be put in that because of your heritage, nationality, whatever you call it.
So the potential of invasion on the West Coast feels pretty possible, and the fear of that is super contagious. Yeah. And people start targeting some people. They start targeting young Mexican Americans. They become a scapegoat, really. So the Zoot suit, which was just a fashion statement, suddenly becomes a symbol of delinquency, of being un-American.
Okay.
Because at this time, people are being rounded up into factories, and they're working for the war effort.
Right.
And here they are like wearing all this extra clothing. And
so basically, if they had these on, they could almost target them because they're like, oh, that's one of
it was basically a target on their back.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. And so everyone was fueled by hysteria and xenophobia, and the newspapers were not helping anything.
Well, good old media.
Yes. So they printed sensational, tall tales, often completely made up, and they created like this big toxic atmosphere. On one side of the headline, you'll see the Japanese and Pearl Harbor and then right next to it, it'll be Mexican Americans, and then just that close proximity was enough to cause like additional prejudice.
Sure, that's wild.
Yeah. So if we think about what's happening in America at the time, it was wartime. Everyone was expected to conform, to be patriotic. And with these Mexican Americans expressing themselves through their styles of music, they didn't fit that mold that other people were putting on themselves, I guess.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So people kind of questioned their contribution with the Zoot being its loose fit, extra fabric. It's basically what they considered unpatriotic, unfortunately.
It's just weird.
Yeah. So we have this young man. His name is José Diaz.
Okay.
He's 22 years old. He is a Mexican immigrant. And he was a responsible young adult. He was not a citizen.
Okay.
But he still joined the Army, the U.S. Army, to fight. So he lived with his family at Williams Ranch, which was a diverse community of Chinese, Italian, and Mexican families.
Okay.
And on August 1st, 1942, they all threw him a farewell party because he was about to report for duty.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a celebration.
Sure.
So the party did actually take a dark turn.
Oh, dear.
In the early morning hours, uninvited guests arrived.
Okay.
They were looking for trouble.
Oh,
they were there for a purpose. A fight broke out, and José Diaz was found nearby, unconscious and brutally attacked.
Oh, Jesus.
He had been stabbed and beaten.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Just like a lot of stabs or just...
He never regained consciousness, and he ended up dying. It wasn't said how many stab wounds he had, but it was enough to make him not wake up.
It's irrelevant. It's
irrelevant, yeah.
It sucks that there's people that think they need to do that. And when this person is literally going to go fight for the United States in the war, they're going to fuck his shit up and, well, kill him, which is sad.
Yeah. So at any other time, a tragedy like this might have been just a local story.
Sure.
But with the climate of fear and prejudice that existed around 1942,
everything going on,
it became much bigger.
Right.
And now all of a sudden it became a symbol of a narrative of a Mexican American crime wave.
Jesus.
So, and it was perfect timing for the LA officials and police officers. They were pretty unpopular at this time.
Okay.
Many of them were corrupt,
yeah.
kind of all the way up to the top kind of a thing.
Yep.
So they might have looked glamorous, the LA officials, but it was just a mess of vice and bribes.
Yep.
So the police saw Diaz's death as kind of an opportunity to kind of clean up their image.
Okay.
And show everyone that they were, quote unquote, doing something about this supposed crime problem.
Right, which they really were perpetuating.
So they all went into full crackdown mode.
Okay.
They raided neighborhoods, arresting over 600 Mexican American kids in just 48 hours over one murder.
Wow.
Yeah.
So why were they arresting them?
Because it was a Mexican American kid surrounded by Mexican Americans at this party. They knew it was a Mexican American crime problem, quote unquote crime problem.
Right.
And they wanted to look good, so they arrested all these people to take action.
And is that who actually killed?
I will get to that.
Okay.
So they targeted kids from the 38th Street neighborhood, and they were kind of labeled as the 38th Street Gang.
Oh, okay.
And the media just kind of ran with that, painting them all as these dangerous criminals.
Right.
And it was a huge media circus, and it set the stage for the biggest murder trial California had ever seen.
Oh, really?
I did try to look up facts to see if anything like that has happened since. I couldn't quite pinpoint it.
Okay.
So it's possible that it's still the biggest murder trial in California.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And this was in 1942.
42. So instead of things calming down, it just made that fear and hysteria in the population even worse.
Yeah.
And in wartime LA, it was like there were these two enemies, the Axis powers and then the Mexican American youth.
This is wild.
Yeah. And Diaz's murder was just fuel for this massive fire. After all those arrests, the cops focused on this 38th Street group, saying that they were the ones who crashed the party where Diaz was killed.
Right.
And the cops ended up pinning everything on Henry Hank Leyvas.
Henry Hank Leyvas. Okay.
They called him the ringleader.
And do we learn a little more about Henry here?
So they called him Hank. Hank Leyvas wasn't just a random kid. He was born in Arizona. His parents escaped the Mexican Revolution. They settled in the 38th Street neighborhood in LA.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Hank did have a short history with the cops before all this.
Of course.
At one time, he and his brother got arrested for stealing a car.
Whoops.
But it was their dad's car.
Oh, so...
They spent 3 days in jail until the dad could prove that it was his car.
Oh.
Yeah. Come on.
That's ridiculous.
But then there was another time that they got arrested for assault with a deadly weapon, and they spent 3 months in jail waiting for a court only to be cleared completely.
Oh, wow.
So the cops kind of already had a nose for him, Yeah,
had a thing for him.
And Hank was kind of a natural leader, and that's exactly why they kind of went after him.
Okay.
They needed another scapegoat.
Sure, of course.
And someone to pin it on, and he was the perfect target.
Huh.
So when he said he was innocent, they beat him so badly that his own sister couldn't recognize him.
Holy crap.
She said, quote, "They had him handcuffed. The hands were behind the chairs. He had his head down. His lip was hanging all below his chin. And I called to him, but he didn't lift his head up. He just was knocked out. And the police said, well, now you've seen him." End quote.
What a dick.
Yeah, isn't that awful?
That's terrible because, apparently you just beat the guy for no reason. Mm-hmm. Because he wasn't, convicted at this point. That
kind of police brutality was
pretty common,
especially towards Americans, Mexicans and Mexican Americans.
Right.
And back then it was common for cops to beat confessions out of people.
That's why it's funny that because they get confessions only because they're beating the shit out of these people,
and they need it to stop.
And they wanted them to stop beating the shit out of them, so they would confess to these things that they never did. Mm-hmm. And it's just wild that was oh yep, he confessed, we got him. Yep. It's did he though?
Yep. But Hank did not.
Good.
He did not confess. In October 1942, he and 17 other guys went on trial for killing José Diaz.
17.
So this was the number that makes it the biggest murder trial in California.
18 total people were on trial for this. Okay.
So during the trial, Hank Leyvas tells his side of the story. He and his girlfriend, they called it the Sleepy Lagoon, this area.
Okay.
So it was a popular spot for Mexican American youth to hang out at. It was like a lake of sorts, and because they weren't allowed in regular city pools with everybody else.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So they were kind of on a date, essentially, and they were hanging out at the Sleepy Lagoon. So as they were leaving, they both actually got jumped by a gang.
Oh, so the Hank did?
Yes, Hank and his girlfriend.
Okay.
So Hank goes back to his neighborhood, rounds up some friends, and then goes back to Sleepy Lagoon for revenge.
Sure.
They mess with his girl, right?
Oh, right, yeah.
But it was kind of a case of mistaken identity. That gang wasn't even there.
Oh.
So a fight breaks out anyway.
Okay.
And José Diaz ends up dead.
Ow.
So Leyvas and his friends admit that they were involved in the fight.
Right.
But they also say, and other people do back up their story, that Diaz wasn't even there when they arrived.
Okay.
So Diaz's murder was never officially solved. There were no witnesses. His body was possibly robbed.
Yeah.
So his body was found by some of the girls from the 38th Street neighborhood.
Okay.
And one of those girls was Hank Leyvas's girlfriend.
Gotcha.
Yeah, just to kind of put it into perspective.
Right.
So the evidence was weak. There was no weapon, no witnesses, and the trial, of course, was a sham.
Right.
Many of the girls from the 38th Street neighborhood were called to the stand.
Okay.
One after another, they refused to cooperate.
Okay.
One of them was a woman named Lorena Encinas. And she knew who killed José Diaz, supposedly, but she would never reveal her secret.
I feel like she should have, just to end all this farce.
You would think, but
okay,
I'll get to that later.
All right.
The LA legal system was pretty biased against the Mexican Americans.
Yeah.
The judge was prejudiced.
Everybody was back then.
Yeah, they allowed racist testimony in the court.
Which is just wild.
Someone would say like Mexicans were natural criminals because of their Aztec heritage.
Oh, Jesus.
So Leyvas and 2 others got life in prison for first-degree murder.
Wow.
And 9 other guys got second-degree murder.
How?
With no witnesses.
That's just terrible.
Yeah. So these boys were imprisoned at San Quentin, which is about 400 miles from their families.
Right.
And the girls from the 38th Street neighborhood were also separated from their families, becoming wards of the state.
Really? How come?
It was just another way to imprison them, really.
Yeah.
So without a trial or jury, they were sent to Ventura School for Girls.
Okay.
It was an institution known for its harsh prison-like condition.
Oh, Lord.
With disciplinary measures comparable to like state prisons.
Oh, God.
Yeah. The Ventura School had such a terrible reputation that young women facing sentencing there took desperate measures to avoid going there, including someone swallowing safety pins to avoid going to this
That's just
institution.
How bad it was.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's how bad their reputation was.
I would not want to swallow safety pins. That doesn't sound like a good outcome.
So this Lorena Encinas, who had knowledge of Jose, she could have used that information to kind of bargain her way out of trouble, but she didn't.
Did it ever say as to why she kept on to it?
Yes.
Okay.
So later, her son explained that she was imprisoned for refusing to cooperate with the court. Go ahead.
Thank you.
And throughout her time at Ventura, Lorena remained silent the entire time about José Diaz's murder.
Okay.
So now the convictions of these men didn't calm things down in LA at all.
Oh, I can't imagine it didn't.
In fact, the city was getting even more tense.
I say it probably made things worse.
It did. So since the war started, there had been a huge influx of sailors and soldiers.
Like in the vicinity, basically?
Yes, and workers, turning LA into like this big booming metropolis.
Right.
Like this is where their base was, essentially.
Well, yeah, because they're getting ready to ship out.
Yes. So all these new people made the already strained situation even worse, especially for the Mexican American community.
Yeah.
And they were already facing such massive discrimination.
Right.
So they built this new like Navy training center in Chavez Ravine, which was a historically segregated neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
Which only added to the tensions.
That's where they built the Dodgers Stadium.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I've been there.
Oh, maybe they took out the naval training facility?
If I don't quote me on this by any stretch, but I believe they like went in there because this when they built it, because I think it was in the 50s, I want to say. They went into like those neighborhoods and basically said, yeah, get out.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
I could be wrong. I thought I heard a story like that once where it's like they just went in there and we want to build something here, and they kind of like forced people out, kind of shit. If I'm right,
yeah.
But either way,
well, let's continue on with this depressing story.
With this debacle,
yeah.
Hey, request next story uplifting.
Were you not here for my Annie Oakley story?
I was. That was uplifting.
Okay.
Let's just go up and
up. You want a roller coaster?
Yeah, let's do that.
Any more requests? Come on.
Another beer, please.
So with this huge increase in military presence, it meant that the media's attacks on the zoot suit wearing Mexican American youth now had a much bigger audience.
Sure.
And these young recruits, many of them fresh from other parts of the country, were primed to see these like young Mexican Americans as the enemy. They came to LA to fight.
Yeah.
They didn't really care who they were fighting.
No, they just wanted to fight.
Yes.
Because they were getting prepared to go fight way worse people in Europe or Japan or any of the Pacific, any blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But yeah. So they were just raring to go.
And these servicemen were not familiar with local customs.
Of course not.
The Spanish language.
No, of course.
There were some absolutely who were respectful.
Sure. You're always going to get the other side.
Yes.
For sure.
But others, especially those who harassed Mexican American women, stirred up a lot of anger and a lot of resentment.
Right.
So things were already pretty tense between these sailors and the Mexican American community. It started with verbal fights, name calling, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then escalated.
Of course, to physical, I would assume, right?
And many of these guys are just teenagers.
Sure.
Like they're young. They are the youth.
Yeah.
And they're coming back to their barracks in Chavez Ravine beaten up because of these brawls.
Wow.
Right? So sailors are being instructed to see these young Mexican Americans as the enemy. They were told to carry socks filled with coins as weapons.
Doesn't that seem weird? Because, like, that's your money. Couldn't you put some rocks in there instead? But yeah, that's wild.
But any little thing could set them off. A look, a word, a phrase. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I was just going to try and quote like a phrase from that. I'm drawing a blank on it, of course, but they literally would use any excuse to, oh man, the wind blew towards me.
Yeah.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah.
Kind of shit. It's
exactly.
just something that stupid.
Right.
They were looking for any reason
He sneezed and didn't apologize.
Yeah, he didn't say, I sneezed, he didn't say bless you or something stupid.
Yeah. So these guys were training for hand-to-hand combat in the Pacific, right?
Yeah.
And they were using these street fights as practice, essentially.
Oh, sure.
It was like a game to these soldiers.
Yeah.
And by May 1943, everybody in LA knew something was a brewing.
Yeah.
So even the newspapers were starting to warn that if the city didn't do something to ease the tension, there were going to be riots. Like they knew it was coming.
It's amazing because they even knew and they couldn't really do anything about it. They just let it happen.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. So there were rumors that were starting to fly, whispers about Mexican men assaulting white women.
Oh, dear.
And white servicemen harassing Mexican women.
Sure.
It was pretty toxic.
Yeah.
And finally, on May 8th, 1943, things reached a boiling point.
Okay.
So someone spread a rumor that a sailor had been stabbed by a zoot suiter in Santa Monica.
Oh, dear.
And within hours, hundreds of servicemen were out on the pier attacking anyone they saw in a zoot suit.
Oh, man.
And the craziest part is the cops arrested the victims of the attacks.
See, isn't that wild?
Saying it was for their own safety.
No, it wasn't.
I know.
They're saying that to you at the time, but that's not clearly what it was.
But this thing on the pier was just a little taste of what was to come. It was just that very first incident.
Tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. On June 3rd, a group of sailors were walking back to base when two guys in zoot suits taunted them.
Well.
And one gave a Nazi salute.
What? That seems like a poor choice.
It was a poor choice, and that was it.
Sure.
Soldiers went back to base, got reinforcements, armed themselves. They were out for blood.
Wow.
They marched downtown saying they were going to clean up the streets. They had bats, chains, their little money bags or whatever.
Sock bag?
Yeah. And they were hunting for anyone wearing a zoot suit.
Right.
Like, that was their calling card. So they went to the corner where they had originally been taunted, but the guys weren't there. The Mexican Americans weren't there.
Of course.
So they found out across the city looking for zoot suiters, or really anyone who looked different.
Yeah.
And they raided cafes.
Oh, Jesus.
They stormed the movie theaters. They pulled out all these young kids, some as young as 13, beating them, stripping them naked, and leaving them in the streets.
Wow, that's a really shitty thing to do.
It was absolute brutality.
Yeah. Do you know what movie they were watching?
For the love of God, that was not in my research.
Just curious. That's wild, though, that they would pull out these young kids even. It's like, clearly they have nothing to do with this. But yet, let's be a complete, total douchebag and beat them up, strip them naked, leave them there. It's like, what the fuck?
On Main Street, brutality became their main goal.
Yeah.
Humiliating these kids. So they literally burned these Zoot suits in the streets.
So that's why they were like stripping them of their Zoot suits and like making a show of it.
It was a public display of power.
Yeah.
We're in charge.
Yep.
Right. A lot of people at the time thought, or they bought into the idea that these kids were just troublemakers avoiding the war.
Sure.
But the truth was, many of these victims were too young to even enlist.
Yeah. I mean, 13-year-olds and all that,
they can't.
What are they supposed to do?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
And the LAPD finally stopped that particular group of soldiers on June 3rd, but the violence didn't stop, of course, because it kept spreading.
Right.
So the next night, it was even worse. Hundreds of servicemen were back on the streets, turning downtown LA into a practical war zone.
Right.
They were armed, they were angry, and they were targeting anyone who looked like they might be a Zoot suiter.
Yeah.
And this time, the cops fucking didn't care.
Sounds like it.
The police basically waited until the servicemen were done beating up and stripping those kids before they even bothered to show up.
Wow.
Yeah. And again, they arrested the victims.
For their safety.
For disturbing the peace this time.
Come on.
Yeah. And
what? There
were rumors that the cops were even helping the servicemen, pointing out who to target.
Right.
It's possible they were in on it because of all the corruption in the LAPD at the time.
Wow.
But the riots went on for several nights, and the lack of any response from the city was truly horrific.
Right.
Over 150 Latinos were injured and 500 were arrested.
Jesus Christ.
And it kind of looked like the city was like actually sanctioning these attacks.
Well, because they weren't doing anything to stop them.
And with the news of all of this, it's literally a propaganda gold mine for the enemy. Germany, Japan used it to show the world how divided and messed up America was.
Right.
Which was a huge international embarrassment.
Well, I can imagine.
Yeah. So finally, after 5 days of rioting on June 8th, the military stepped in and declared LA off limits to all military personnel. They're like, get the fuck out of this city.
Wow.
Yes. Washington was finally breathing down their necks, worried about the propaganda.
Yep.
They canceled all leave and confined everyone to base, and just like that, the riot stopped.
Isn't that amazing?
Amazing what you can do when you just...
I don't know. Don't be a dick.
Yeah. It's just fucking crazy how quickly it ended when something was actually done.
Done about it, yeah. No, for sure.
By mid-June, similar riots targeting Zoot suiters, both Mexican-American and African-American, broke out in other cities like New York and Detroit.
Oh, sure.
But back in LA, after everything calmed down, everyone was kind of left wondering, like, what the hell just happened?
Right.
The city was pretty much condemned, but nobody here wanted to take responsibility.
Yeah, sure.
So Eleanor Roosevelt actually suggested in a speech that it was about race. The riots were about race.
Well, I mean, that's what it was about, because clearly they were... But
to save face, the LA press attacked her, called her a communist, and said, no, it's not about race.
Well, it's because they're just trying to save their own ass because they didn't fucking do anything about it. When it's clearly about race because they're going after one certain race. I mean, and maybe collectively some others in the vicinity.
Right.
But they were targeting the one, so it's 100% about race, you fucking idiots. So
eventually there were two committees that were created to handle this kind of attack.
Okay.
A state committee which concluded that race was the central factor.
Duh.
And then a mayor's committee
What? Mayor? What does a mayor's committee all entail?
Just people in the mayoral office created a committee and denied that it was a race problem completely.
Again, they're just trying to save their own ass.
Yes, they didn't want to admit that it was a race riot. They blamed it on delinquent kids and downplayed the military's role.
When clearly it just escalated really fast when they were involved.
Yes.
So their role was quite large.
But while LA was trying to sweep it all under the rug,
yeah,
there was another story unfolding, the Sleepy Lagoon murder.
The murder, yep.
And we're talking about like the Defense Committee, which was formed back in 1942.
Okay.
It was still fighting to clear the names of the 38th Street guys who were wrongly convicted.
Right.
They actually had a lot of activists and celebrities on their side. Orson Welles.
Oh, really?
And Rita Hayworth.
Oh, wow.
The actress. Yeah.
Yeah, I know who she is.
Yeah. So they were advocates for these Mexican-American youth.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And in 1944, they finally won their appeal.
Oh, cool.
The court agreed that the original trial was biased and overturned all the convictions.
That's wild.
Hank Leyvas and the others were finally released from San Quentin.
That's fantastic. Did those? What happened to the girls that were wards of the state then?
I think they were there until like they were 18 or something.
Oh, okay.
I think I wrote it down later and I don't remember offhand because I wrote this like 2 weeks ago. But
sure.
But it was a huge victory, right?
Right.
These ordinary citizens, activists showed like what a small group of people can actually do in the big realm of things.
Right.
So Hank Leyvas had spent about 2 years in prison before he was released. But unfortunately, that wasn't the end of his brushes with the law.
Of course.
Hank Leyvas got right back to work after his release and started seeing his old girlfriend again.
Okay.
But he was pretty bitter, and it wasn't
Sure.
long before he was back behind bars.
There it is.
For selling drugs.
Right.
Which he did like a 10 to 12 year stretch. Yeah.
I mean, I can understand why he'd be pretty bitter, though.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you should go sell drugs.
But later on, Hank finally did get a little bit more settled. He opened a restaurant.
Oh, really?
It was called Hank's on Whittier Boulevard in East LA.
Okay.
And it's where his family worked. So
sure.
He had some girlfriends over the years, but he never got married.
Is it still open today?
I didn't look.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. On July 6, 1971, Hank left a bar in East LA to call home from a payphone.
Yeah.
Telling his family that he'd be there soon. He went back inside, and not long after, he actually died of a heart attack.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was
That's
48.
Wild. Pretty young.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. So, towards the end of her life, on January 5th, 1991, Lorena Encinas,
Yes.
the one with the knowledge about José Diaz's killer,
Yeah.
she finally confessed about what really happened at Sleepy Lagoon.
Okay.
Her daughter said that Lorena kept quiet all that time because her brother, Louis, was mixed up in the murder. Lorena wasn't a snitch, and she was trying to protect her brother.
Sure.
She said that Louis was at the party before the 38th Street gang showed up, and he got tossed out for starting trouble.
Okay.
Later that night, when José Diaz and a couple of other guys left the party, Louis and his buddies, looking for revenge, jumped them.
Oh.
A fight broke out. Diaz got stabbed and was left for dead.
Sure.
And then right after that, Hank Leyvas and his crew showed up.
So and that's why they got blamed for it. Yeah.
So Louis Encinas was picked up in the whole like dragnet of everything following the Sleepy Lagoon murder, but he was let go by the police.
Oh, wow.
Years later, he did commit suicide while holding up a Los Angeles branch of the Bank of America.
Wow.
In 1972.
Okay.
To this day, José Diaz's murder is still
considered
unsolved.
Yeah. Wow.
But that is the story of the Zoot riots and the death of José Diaz.
So is that where the Cherry Poppin' Daddies got their song from?
Yes.
It is?
Yes.
Nice.
It is.
They're going to throw back a bottle of beer?
It's actually a pretty catchy song.
I love that song.
Yeah.
I remember when I've listened to it the majority of my life, so
yeah,
I enjoy it very much.
Good.
Take a sip of your beer.
What'd you think of the story?
I liked it. It's different, kind of not something you normally would normally learn about, basically. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, to be honest, the only thing I knew about the Zoot Suit Riots was the song by the
song.
Cherry Poppin' Daddies. So I didn't know
the
it was...
outfit is super cool. I actually really like the outfits.
Yeah, you going to get one?
No.
Get a purple one?
Oh.
Oh.
Can they be pinstripes too? Because that's cool.
Ooh, can it be purple with like different, like a darker shade of purple as the pinstripes?
Ooh.
Now we're talking.
Contrast.
Contrast. But no, I had no idea that was even a thing, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that was interesting. And way to go, police, to
ruin everything.
Shit the bed on that. So, yeah, we're just going to let them do their thing. Then we'll arrest the ones that got attacked.
Yeah, exactly.
Fucking idiots.
So I'm going to do something that you don't know is coming.
Oh.
Do you want to share an idiom with me? He's not prepared.
Yes, I do.
You can get one for me?
Hold, please. All right, so the idiom I have is coming down the pike. You've heard that one before, right?
Yeah, I've actually used that recently, and somebody was like, what does that mean?
Yeah. I think this one came from you.
Oh, okay. I was I literally wrote it in an email to someone.
Right. And I believe that's why you said, we should do that one because I just used it or something like that. You want to know a little more about it. So the phrase coming down the pike originates from the term turnpike.
Yes.
You know which that is. Which refers to a type of road where a toll is paid to pass through, and a pike is simply a shortened version of that, essentially meaning coming down the road and signifying something approaching or expected in the near future.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it means something is on the horizon or about to happen, kind of like what I said before. But it's kind of like they don't really know exactly where it originated from, kind of thing. But basically, the most common and accepted explanation is that pike refers to the turnpike, like I said, and that these roads were often privately owned and required a toll, and so on. But then coming down the road, the phrase coming down the pike, so it's kind of combined it, would then have originally meant something literally approaching or appearing on the road. So it's basically just what's coming ahead of you, kind of thing. So there's some different theories on where it originated from. I believe it's American. It came from originally America, basically. But yeah, coming down the pike is mainly just something is coming down in the future, near future, what opportunities, whatever you want to call it, like that. But because you had said that one recently, and
people think it's pipe, P-I-P-E, coming down the pipe.
When I was a kid, I always thought people were saying, I'm like, what do you mean pike?
It's pike.
Because it sounds like it should be coming down a pipe.
Yeah.
Which I can get the confusion on it, but it's technically coming down the pike.
Yes.
Since you gave me that one, I'll do another quick one because this came from your husband.
Okay.
Which is limelight. Basically, before electricity, theaters would use heated calcium oxide, which is known as quicklime, to illuminate stages. This is where the phrase "in the limelight" comes from.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It came from the 19th century, basically. But I kind of found a couple different things. The one I gave you is the one he sent me. But it says the invention of limelight in the early 1800s, a type of stage lighting, like it said, was developed using calcium oxide, also known as quicklime. And that's when it was heated to a high temperature, it gave a bright white light.
Okay.
Because they didn't have electricity, they needed to light up the stage.
Yeah,
so
it's crazy.
Yeah. It says limelight was first used in theaters in the 1830s. It provided a much brighter and more focused light than the gas lights that were commonly used at the time. So it allowed for more dramatic and effective stage lighting. Because obviously back then, without electricity, they just literally had gas lamps. Those gave off light, but not a ton of it.
Yeah.
So it was still really dim, and this made it so you can see, everything on the stage. So There's a Rush song, the band Rush, who I'm a pretty big fan of, called Limelight. It's a really good song.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you'll see like...
Now, is it Lime L-Y or L-I?
L-I-M-E.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's been around for a while, and it basically, like, if you're in the limelight, it's just referring to as like you're on
the spotlight.
You're on the stage,
yeah.
Spotlight's on you kind of thing.
Yeah,
so
that's cool.
Yeah, so I thought since I did one that came from you, I should do one from your husband too.
Yeah.
So thanks, Nathan. But yeah, so.
Well, what'd you think about your Country Boy Brewing beer?
It's pretty good, and I'll another one. No, I mean it's just a regular American Pale Ale. It's pretty easy going, only 5.5%, so not too shabby though.
Yeah, my Cougar Bait, the American Blonde Ale, is 4.9%. I really liked it. I actually finished mine.
Oh, good.
I know.
That's a rarity for you
it
sometimes.
Is, yeah.
So.
Yeah, but you allowed me to like take a breath at the end, and I could actually finish it while you were talking. So
I'm glad I could help.
Yes.
But well, yeah. So it's nice that we were able to bring some beers back, so we could try something a little different because that's what we like to do, and not always. I know we go to our Modelo's and our summer shandies a lot, but it's nice to get some different type of beers out there and
for sure
try them and see what we like. So
yeah. Well,
I suppose. All right, buffoons. That's it for today's episode.
Buckle up because we've got another historical adventure waiting for you next time. Feeling hungry for more buffoonery? Or maybe you have a burning question or a wild historical theory for us to explore?
Hit us up on social media. We're History Buffoons Podcast on YouTube, X, Instagram, and Facebook. You can also email us at historybuffoonspodcast@gmail.com. We are Bradley and Kate. Music by Corey Akers.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts and turn those notifications on to stay in the loop.
Until next time, stay curious and don't forget to rate and review us.
Remember, the buffoonery never stops.